Have you ever reached over and shut off the alarm for the fourth time in a row? I have, and being in the landscaping industry, mornings can be rough. So that's when I decided to figure out what it was that helped people get going and keep up the momentum. I wanted the secret to completing the boring yet important tasks each day. That's when I discovered the law of momentum. Now, not that law, this law. You start off with a specific goal. Then you take the next best action towards it. Recognize your accomplishments, and then celebrate proportionately. Repeat. So instead of hitting the snooze, just sitting up in bed. Now you're not laying down. Success. Throw your legs over the side of the bed. Now you're sitting on the side of the bed. Success. But there were days that were harder to keep that going. I realized I was missing a critical component. It was the success equation. Now, I thought it was simple. It was just going to be the tools, resources, and plan divided by 3. You rate each of those factors on a scale of 1 through 10, and you have your success rate on a scale of 1 to 10. So my tool, automatic drip, pretty good. I'll go ahead and rate that an 8. My resources, for the coffee drinkers among you, fresh ground coffee, perfection, that's a 10. For my plan, it was to make my morning as easy as possible so that when I did take action, it was easy to continue, like setting my clothes out the night before. I'm going to go ahead and rate that pretty good, so I will give that a 9. Now, if you average the 8, the 10, and the 9 together, you're going to come up with 9. That should be 9 times out of 10 that I'd wake up and get out of bed right after the first alarm. That didn't happen, so I realized I had to add to the equation. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, and you're going to need a calculator for this next part. You're going to take that first number, and you're going to multiply it by the square root of your focus on your reason. Your reason is broken up into 2 parts. One part is going to be personal. The other part is inspirational. Think of inspirational as the factor that others can point at and talk about how great it is. It's the treating of a disease. Personal is when you treat that disease because you or a loved one has it. Again, you want to rate each of those factors on a scale of 1 through 10, and you have your success rate on a scale of 1 to 100. Let's look at what happens when you just focus on your reason. Now, to bring you into my world, my dad and I are very close, but there's something you need to understand about him. He's always been a hardworking man who has loved the outdoors, so we got into the landscaping business. And for the past 8 years, he's actually really enjoyed his work. However, with him getting older, I just knew that he wouldn't always be able to take care of it by himself. That's why I decided to come into his business. I wanted to build it up to a sustainable point where he wouldn't have to worry about going out in the field at 70. It wasn't inspirational to put together proposals or do interviews, but when I thought about the kind of future that I could create, I took action. Let's look at an example that you could put into the whole equation. The young Benjamin Franklin. Now, when he was 16, he worked for his brother. His brother owned a print shop as well as a local newspaper. His brother and his brother's friends, they were writing articles for this newspaper, and they were gaining notoriety among the community. Benjamin wanted this as well, but he knew his brother would not want to publish something written by a 16-year-old boy. So, what did Benjamin do? His tools. He had a pen and paper. Simple, yet effective. I'm going to go ahead and rate that a 9. His resources were his wit, his cleverness, and disguised penmanship. Obviously, he didn't want to get caught. Now, I'm going to consider that second to none, and I'm going to give that a 10. His plan. He was to sneak out in the secret of nightfall. He would slip the letter underneath the door of the newspaper, and then he would also write underneath the alias Silence Dogood. It was a widow of a country minister, someone well-respected among the community. This is a pretty good plan, but there were some flaws. I'll kind of get back to that a little bit later. I'm just going to rate that an 8. For something personal, he wanted to write about his opinions. He wanted to talk about government, tyrannical power, and the condemnation of the locals. I consider this pretty personal, and I'll go ahead and rate that a 9. Inspirational. He was a 16-year-old boy that was disguising himself as a widow in the 1700s. I consider that pretty inspirational, and I'm giving that a 10. Now, I know this is all what you're waiting for. Put all those numbers into the equation, and a satisfying 85%. And actually, he was successful. Every single letter that he wrote was published on the front page. What he didn't realize is that when he finally admitted that it was him, jealousy from his brother ended up forcing him to run away and stop writing those letters. That's the 15%. With this example, it just shows that you could use this equation for every occasion. But now, what if the fear of the unknown had set in? I realized the last piece lied in this mindset. It's what separated Benjamin Franklin from his peers. Obviously, he wasn't the only teenager who had ideas about government or their society. The last piece was a mindset that said, I don't know, but I'll find out. It was saying that you don't have all the answers, but you wouldn't let that stop you. It was saying that even if your tools and resources or plan aren't the best, that you couldn't let that stop you. It was admitting that you may not have the right information, but you won't let that stop you. So now, with the law of momentum, the success equation, and the right mindset, you could accomplish anything you want to achieve. And tomorrow morning, when I'm laying in bed and it's cold outside my covers, when I'm smelling the coffee and I don't know what calls are going to come in, I'll think about the people who depend upon me. I'll throw my legs over the side of the bed, and I'll get up. Thank you.